In 2024, your host, Mark Smith, celebrated 7 years of the Microsoft Business Applications podcast. Now, we step into a transformative 2025 with a fresh new name. Welcome to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast. Our new name reflects a broader vision, exploring the intersection of people, business, technology, and AI. You'll also hear from me, Meg Smith, a bit more as we launch a new exciting series called The AI Show.
Welcome to the MVP Show. My intention is that you listen to the stories of these MVP guests and are inspired to become an MVP and bring value to the world through your skills. If you have not checked it out already, I do a YouTube series called How to Become an MVP. The link is in the show notes. With that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Weymouth, England. He's the director and co-founder of Zaptia. We'll find out more about that in a moment. He was first awarded as MVP in 2023. He's a rising star in the tech industry, generating recognition as the Tech Star of the Year UK winner 2023, which was pretty amazing. Co-founder of the Power Platform Duo, which I want to know more about, and the founder of the Scottish Power Platform user group, which kind of blows my mind based on where he's based. You can find links to his bio, social media, etc. in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you for having me.
Mate, so much to unpack there just on the intro of what, we've of course met in Slovenia earlier on this year, but I really want to unpack this story of yours. But before we start, food, family, and fun. What do those three things mean for you?
So food, I get excited when you mention food. So I'm a big eater. I'm not a big cook. Just because I've got quite a few other hobbies, so I don't usually get a lot of time to cook, but I absolutely love food. Always been in and around food. My dad and my mum are very good cooks, so food is warming and gives me a lot of pleasure. I'd say family is my strength behind me. I've come on a journey. And my family have supported me. So actually a bit about my background is I was actually adopted when I was very young. The journey I've been through and what my adopted parents did for me put me where I am today. So that gives me my strength and my fuel to get out there and really nail it. What was the other one?
Fun. What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies when you're not doing the tech stuff? What are you up to?
My biggest hobbies are mixed martial arts. So I used to do a lot of boxing. I've now moved into Muay Thai. But gym, running, any sort of sports, I'm a real sports fan.
Have you had to ever use your skills beyond the sporting arena?
Only once. Only once, luckily.
Street fight?
Usually you avoid the situations.
Absolutely.
Right? And usually you can see a situation coming. But now I got attempted to be mugged about 18 months ago. So obviously straight into the self-defense. But
yeah. And was it kind of like all your muscle memory just clicked in?
Yeah, it all happened within seconds. Like before I remember, the way I executed, the way I avoided, the way I dodged. I didn't mean to do any of that. It just happened. So as you said, it's all muscle memory, and then you look back at it and you're like, "Whoa, that was scary. How did I do that?"
Yeah. So how long was the guy in hospital for?
I don't know. It was actually two guys. So one of them I managed to take out, and then the other one I escaped from.
Wow. Crazy. I'm about to put my daughter into jiu-jitsu. Down the road, a guy from Brazil actually has been training, and he starts with 4-year-olds. So that's his baseline and takes him from there.
It's one of the most humbling sports, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's one of the most humbling sports. sports that I've ever come across.
Why do you say that?
Because when I first started it, they call it rolling in jiu-jitsu. So you don't spar, you roll with someone. And I rolled with a lady. She must have been 60 kilos, really light compared to me. I was about 85. And it took her 40 seconds before I started tapping out.
Wow.
And I was, trying to use my strength and everything, but she just used pure skill, agility, executed me 40 seconds. I'm tapping. Otherwise, I would have been choked. So it's a really humbling but crucial sport, I think. But for me, I think when I have children, I'll teach them a level of mixed martial arts. It's not so they can be violent. There's a lot of good skills that you learn around discipline, the skill of learning the martial arts itself, the health benefits, etc.
Yeah. But I think it is critical in today's day and age to have the ability to physically defend oneself if you need to,
Yeah, more importantly these days, right?
Yeah, because that whole, I've had a nephew that was just walking down the street and some guy just came up and didn't even know he was approaching and clocked him and took him out, put him in hospital, and had no idea that, and, yeah, so it's I think it's important, and I think particularly important in today's day and age. So I'll put both my youngins through their training because it's so close to me as well. I just think it's a no-brainer. It's just one of those skills that I think if they can pick it up from very young, it'll be much more, muscle memoried for them if they stick with it. So let's see. Anyhow, a couple of things in your intro that I'm interested in. The Power Platform Duo, what is this?
So me and my old business partner, I say old business partner, he's currently my business partner, Alex, we are the Power Platform Duo. I say old because we've just gone for a merger. So I'm now not the co-founder of Zaptica. I'm actually the delivery director of Synapse. So we've become, there was two directors become the four and become this bigger entity. But yeah, we were the Power Platform Duo. We set that up. We started geeking out in Power Apps, creating games, making Power Apps a fun tool to learn and taking away from the seriousness, just to show that there's another way to learn Power Apps without just building your standard ticketing system or HR tool, etc. And yeah, we did a lot of sort of YouTubing around that style of videos.
There's a bunch of stuff about that on LinkedIn recently. Some chat was having a go about not being happy that people were like building games and stuff, which were not really practical use cases for. I don't know if you saw that. There's a whole thread on it.
I haven't seen that, but I'd love to see it because I don't know. I think it teaches you some good foundations, especially when you try and give yourself a really challenging game like Minesweeper or something where you have to think about nested galleries and how to get around that and what you do about the performance. So there's a lot of fundamental concepts of actual development that I learned through developing complex games, or what we class as simple games, but actually when you start to build them, you're like, damn, this is complicated.
Yeah. I've always impressed, like Scott the Duro always took that attitude from the get-go with it and created stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, how did you think that up? Like, I know there's a lot of logic and math and stuff also in what you're doing there. So I think, pretty epic. Let's move on to the next thing in your intro. Tech Star of the Year, UK winner. How did that come about? What was that for?
That was amazing. So yeah, that was in 2023. I got invited, so I got nominated for this UK Tech Star of the Year reward, and I was like, "What's this all about?" And it was, being recognised as a rising star in the industry. And then I realized that it came from a client who actually nominated me based on one of the implementations I did. And then it was also backed up by some of the community work that I had done. particularly talks in those sort of areas around performance enhancements and accessibility, because I was at the time building quite large scale enterprise applications. So they were obviously important topics when you're building an application like that. And then it was the same year that I got rewarded my super user status on Power Apps forums, my MVP. So it all came together quite nicely. I don't know why I won it. I was amongst some great talent. There was people like Chris Huntingford and other great stars out there that were up for the award. But Chris was there to support me, and bought me a beer after, and we had a great time and a great evening. I don't think he remembers it because I carried him home in a taxi. But yeah, it was a great awards evening, and it was really I felt really privileged to be provided that award and that sort of recognition.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parvez, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guide.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.
There's another thing we have in common, that is regarding Chris.
It's a common habit of his.
Mine was with him in, where were we? We were in, I was going to say Norway, but no, it was Sweden. We were in Sweden at the time, and we were staying in a hotel together. We were doing a launch of the Swedish user group, Power Platform user group, the inaugural meeting, which was a couple of years ago now. But yeah, we had a good night out, and we had the next day free, so it was all good. So Sarah Lagerquist took us on a tour around the islands and stuff. It was just a banger of a time. So, but the last one here, Scottish Power Platform user group, and this is what kind of was like, have I got this right? Because I've seen the Epic logo, right, which is the big hairy coup, right, all in colours. But you're in Weymouth, England, and Scotland seems to be at the other end of the country. How did that one come about?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I actually live on probably as far away as Scotland as you can get. But no, at the time I was working for a power platform consultancy based in Scotland. However, I was working remote. I wasn't living in Scotland. But it was quite apparent to me, based on my client base and based on discussions I was having with regular sort of clients and people of interest in Power Platform in Scotland, that there was no type of community there. It was obvious that on Azure, Glasgow Azure Group, absolutely incredible bunch of guys, and they were doing a fantastic job. But there wasn't anything similar that I was aware of for Power Platform. So I approached my organization and said, would you allow me to start this up? It will require a little bit of sponsorship first. Did you want to get behind it? And they were very supportive. So I decided I'm going to set up this Scottish Power Platform user group. And then once I departed from that consultancy, I said, look, I want to own this. So I bought it myself. And then I brought on the right people to help me. So, we're now a team of 4, Stuart, Rani, and Josh. And yeah, we try and put in-person events on all the time. So next week, I'm actually flying to Edinburgh. We've got our next in-person event. We've got some really exciting news with some collaboration that we're looking into. The events are only going to get bigger and better. And we also run the virtual events, but it's the whole story behind it, and the reason behind it is there is a lack of community for Power Platforms, specifically for people in Scotland. So that's what we're trying to target. You go to Manchester, there's a lot. You go anywhere up north, there's a lot. But you get to Scotland and it seems like you've got some incredible talent there, but no one's coming
So
together.
here's the crazy thing, though, right? Because the Scottish Summit is pretty much synonymous with the Power Platform, and back at that time when Christy and Connolly started it, it was, I went to the first one because I was living in the UK at the time, and nothing was going on in Scotland then, and everyone said, told them there's no way this event will be successful because there's nobody into it, and of course it's a mega event now. And then what surprised me is that I expected at that time, because I've founded heaps of user groups over my career, in Australia particularly, that I thought that would have been a natural byproduct at that time, but this came years later.
Yeah, it came years later. But we're in discussions with Mark, Christy, around the collaboration. We've both recognised what we're doing. I'm attending the Scottish Summit. My company is one of the sponsors. I'm really looking forward to it. Work closely with the guys. We're actually building them the application for the registration, which is super exciting. But yeah, we're regularly in chat. There's going to be some exciting news coming soon around that, because we recognize that we're probably stronger if we bump heads and get behind this together, because ultimately this is for the people in Scotland, right? So it's not about me, it's not about Mark, it's not about anyone else apart from those in Scotland serving the Power Platform.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, being based on the geographic location, it really does serve all the United Kingdom, as a no-brainer. I mean, part of the fun I feel of it was, for me, was getting on the train in London and, training all the way up into Edinburgh and then beyond. It was part of the excitement of the event.
Yeah, we do get quite a few people just traveling for the user group. And I know it's different for a summit because you're going for a couple of days. Traveling just for an evening event, you either have to leave work early, do some flexi hours. And it's surprising how many people actually get on a train and travel. And we've had people, guest speakers come. Obviously, we sponsor them, but we've had people come up hours on trains and stuff. And then obviously my commitment to get there every time as well. So yeah, but that's part of the fun, right?
I think that, what COVID probably showed us, and I think I feel it even more post-COVID, is the power of in-person is something magical in the human connection that can be made, which you'll never make through a screen, a Teams meeting or something like that. And I think that the human nature of what we saw with COVID was that people crave that to a degree. And my wife just recently went, traveled 3 hours to go to an event in another city, and which is something that could have been logged on, and you could have been one of the virtual attendees and stuff. But out of it came these amazing business connections that will flow into a whole range of areas. One was, somebody in Microsoft that'll, an internal person that's already growing into something quite big for our business. And then, connections to the US Chamber of Commerce, which is just other business doors being open, and then into government, because it was a thing at Deloitte's from memory. But it was this in-person thing, which you will never get that, connection, I feel, outside of it. And so it doesn't surprise me that people travel, particularly because in our community, there's this real sense of family within our community and oneness and like-mindedness that the whole in-person thing just accelerates, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the strongest communities out there in the tech world. My background was sort of traditional software development. And then when I hit the low-code technologies, and, I tried a few of them, Nintex, Mendix, before I stumbled across the Power Platform.
Everybody makes mistakes.
It was try before I buy type thing. And then when I hit the Power Platform, I realized, wow, there's actually people going out their way to support other people in what they're trying to achieve, whether that's a business problem, whether that's career. And for me, that was enough. And then once I started receiving help, I was like, hold up, I can help people as well. So I wanted to start helping. And that's what really got me driving to, start doing a load of the things on the community. It wasn't just set up a Power Platform user group. It was, going on the forums every day and checking for problems and how I can provide solutions, whether that's I put aside half an hour to an hour. Some days it was only 15 minutes because that's all I had. And, I'd read something and I'd have to move on. But it was whatever time I could put aside, I would, for the community, because the community has served me so well.
How did you get your first exposure to the community?
So I was working for a consultancy in London, and they did have an MVP. And I was like, well, what's an MVP? He was called Haniel. He's based in the US, and he was a MVP in Power Automate. And I was like, well, what is a MVP? What does Power Automate MVP mean? And he explained it, took me under his wing, and I was like, okay. And then when I was first learning the Power Platform, you know how it is. You stumble across YouTube videos, you stumble across people's blogs, forums, and I started seeing these people that I was regularly, learning from, and they were all MVPs. And I was like, wow, I want to be one of these. Like, they were essentially a role model and inspiration. I know it sounds really cliche, but I was like, damn, these guys are cool, because actually I've just learned how to do something. And, I'm still being paid by my employer, but I've managed to be successful based on reading someone else's blog that they've taken time to actually write. If they didn't write that, I probably wouldn't have achieved it. So I was a bit like, I want to be that guy. So it kind of went from there.
Tell me, there's so many questions I want to ask. It's good that those listening, there's going to be another episode recorded with Charlie, which is around more the business side of what he does. But what's involved in setting up a user group?
So there's a few sides of it. I think the first side is sponsorship, and how are you making it attractive for an organization to even get involved, or a charity or a community or people's personal money. So it's a lot of marketing. It's a lot of, okay, put yourself in their shoes. What would I want? What exposure would I like? What are you going to do for me? And, I've naturally been good at that, at the marketing side of things, and putting myself in someone else's shoes, saying, okay, you're asking me for my money, but what do I get from it? So it's working out that. But then you have the event organization side of things. So finding a venue, finding the appropriate venue with the right technology. The one thing that we like to do with the Scottish Power Platform user group, to keep it quite different to other user groups, is we move around Scotland and we find exciting venues. So we've rented out cinemas, we've rented out theatres, we've done pubs. We're trying to keep it different and exciting and cool venues every single time, but that does take time to actually go out and find them. And it's kind of why we're a team of 4, because there's so much to do. So, there's one person who does a lot around the event side of things. There's one side who does a lot around the accountancy side of things, the sponsorships. There's one of us who do the sort of marketing side of things. And then there's someone who's actually looking after the speakers and the sessions and trying to group them, because actually you want to make this attractive for someone to say, I'm going to take my time out in my evening that I could be spending doing X, Y, Z, because I want to go listen to this person or learn this. So how can you make it interesting? How can you keep it exciting? And a part of that, I find, is keeping up to date with the technology yourself that you're pushing. So obviously we're pushing Power Platform. All 4 of us are in Power Platform consultancies and in these types of roles.
I know I could go on for ages having this discussion, but we're already 4 minutes over time. So Charlie, thanks so much for coming on. Look forward to talking to you soon.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and want to be a supporter, check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 guide. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Support for this episode comes from Justin Welsh's guide to finding your voice on LinkedIn. When I worked at Google, I never posted on LinkedIn because I didn't think anyone wanted to hear what I had to say. Then I took Justin's course, and it gave me the confidence to start sharing authentically. Check it out if you've been wanting to show up on LinkedIn but don't know how to start. Sign up using the link in the show notes.